If you can grab a seat soon and kind of wrap up your conversations, we're going to get started here soon. So tonight, this is our February month's meetup, and we have a very special guest for you. His name is Valerian Bennett, and he's here tonight going to talk about his product, Pop Chest. But before we do that, we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping, and we're going to talk about our sponsors up here. So first off, thanks to Airbits, right, for hosting tonight. Thank you, Airbits. Perkins Coie, they're here. This, I think, is the first time they've helped sponsor this event, so that's fantastic. And Alexandria and Block Tech is here. Thanks for supporting and sponsoring these events so that we can continue to do this. And Coinstructive, that's my business, and we help support the meetup too. Thank you. The meetups are really a fantastic opportunity for everybody to get together in a real, community, warm community environment that helps explain this difficult technology and brings to you some of the new and upcoming technologies that are based on Bitcoin and the blockchain. So I'll tell a little bit about my company first, just to let you know. In January or end of December, we incorporated, and we are currently courting our first client to help them integrate micropayments into their platform, their software platform. So yes, micropayments, theme of the night tonight. So there's a lot of uses that this technology is good for, and micropayments is one of them. And speaking of micropayments, right? Obviously, it's on more and more people's minds if people are looking to incorporate it into their technologies. So we're hoping that he wants to join and sign up very soon. And let's see. We have an announcement from, does anybody here not have a Bitcoin wallet? Raise your hand. All right, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on, it's okay to be honest, because it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt if you don't have one. We're gonna get one for you, and we're gonna give you your first Bitcoin tonight. Yeah, we'll give you your first bits tonight. So you can kind of get a feel for it, because you can hear about this technology over and over and over again, but once it's in your hand and you see how it works, you'll go, that's it? That was easy. And then you're going to be hooked. So the other sponsor that I forgot to mention tonight is Bitcoin Money and .com with Stephen Michaels, who's also here tonight. So thank you, Stephen, for helping sponsor. And he's got an announcement that he wants to make too. So I'm going to have him come up and do his announcement now. So Stephen is doing a raffle tonight for a coin key. Is that correct? Here, why don't you do this into the mic so people can hear.
So CoinKey, CoinKee.com. So, and of course BitcoinMoney.com. So we just handed out 2 or so. So we're merging old tech with new tech here, and so what I've got in the phone, we've got the old tech with our raffle ticket numbers, but then I've got a random number generator here on the phone. That instead of having someone reach into the box, I'll have them shake the phone, because it takes random movement. So would you do that for me, please? And then read the number that comes on the screen.
67.
So 67. Whoever has 67 at the end of their number, you're the winner of a free coin. No way.
I'm not kidding.
We're gonna take that, right? Are we gonna take that?
I don't think that works. I don't think that works.
Let's give away another one. Okay, you get that one. We'll do. Shake it again. All right. Shake it again. Okay. And it's not 67 this time. All right.
50.
50. Who has 50 over here? You're the 50er? All right, come on up. Give him a big hand. So, all right. So coin key looks like this. It's a cool little power tool on your keys. And you can generate paper wallets and brain wallets and gift cards and all those cool things. So that's yours, sir. Thank you very much. Congratulations. So.
I think you managed to give this the most taking person.
All right, there you go. So you're going to have to be our testimonial. So yeah, that's it. So I'll turn it back over to Devin. Okay, good. So the mic is in my arm. There you go. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Devin. I am going to be meeting next week with a San Diego rich guy who is thinking about doing a blockchain-based accelerator/fund. So if anyone has any ideas for a startup, he wants to hear from me about whether it's a good idea. I'm going to try to convince him it is, but the more ammo I have from people saying, hey, I've got an idea to do this, I've got an idea to do this, he'll be more likely to be convinced. So come hit me up after the meeting if you have an idea, if you're like totally committed to something already or whatever else. Go ahead. Oh, is that what I said? I'm sorry. Yeah, he's going to be doing a blockchain-based incubator/fund. So, cool. Any other announcements?
All right, I'm MK, Community Manager at Airbits. I just wanted to draw everyone's attention to a couple lists on this table here. If you have any announcements, we're also going to be doing announcements at the very end. If anyone would like to announce their business that's been taking Bitcoin or any other kind of news that you'd like to announce, you can sign up there. And then we're also going to be doing a raffle. We'll be announcing the winner at the next meetup, which is March 10th. So be sure to sign up for that. We just require your name and email, and you'll be subscribed to our newsletter. And yeah, so sign up for that. We're going to have a couple cool prizes. We're going to be giving away an Airbits key or a gift card, a t-shirt, and one of these carabiner mugs. You can kind of see them up there. Really fun if you're into hiking and things like that. So, so yeah, I won't take up anyone else's time. Check out those lists and enjoy Valerian's presentation.
All right. Well, without further ado, again, thank you all for coming tonight, and our feature presentation is about to start.
Excellent. Can we get the thingamabobber?
Yeah, we just need to do a little technical switch over.
Oh, got it. I see it there. Oh, yeah, it's going. Perfect. Let me make sure. Yes. All right. Good to go, Han Solo. Can everyone hear me okay? Perfect. All right. So I am Valerian Bennett. My company is called PopChest, and we do micropayments for video. So one of the cool things, one of the many, many, many cool things about Bitcoin is that you can send relatively small amounts of value instantly around the world for relatively no cost. So that has a whole bunch of implications. The specific one we're going to talk about with PopChest is the implications that it has for media distribution. So this one is called Bitcoin Meets YouTube. That's what we're here for. Or how I learned to stop depending on annoying ads and love micropayments. So this is all based on something that we just did with a guy called Nerd Rage. He is a YouTube star. He's got over 600,000 subscribers, and he does crazy chemistry experiments. And the amount of views that he gets, which may number in the tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands, you would think that would make for a good business. Turns out he actually doesn't make that much money because the platforms basically take the vast majority of it. So YouTube takes a big chunk. His credit card processor takes a big chunk. The people who take the rights to put ads on his in front of his videos takes a chunk. So he ends up making like 20 cents on the dollar for the content that he makes. But all the companies that take the chunks in between, they're worth tens of billions of dollars. So we're going to try to move that value from where we think it should be, which is the people who actually make the stuff, as a company, move that value from the platforms to the people who make things, take a little chunk in between. That's how we're going to make our business and give you better content, because the things that you like, you're actually voting with your wallet and giving money to the people so they can hopefully make more cool stuff. And a little bit about us. There's me. My background's in the entertainment industry, so started as a music video editor, mostly hip-hop music videos, Lil Wayne, 50 Cent, Wu-Tang Clan, all that kinds of stuff. Do a lot of reality television, so The Real World, RuPaul's Drag Race, Epic Mealtime, if you know, Harley and the guys there. And my partner, he's in security and Bitcoin stuff, so he comes from RSA. In September of 2014, he published the first actual implementation of Bitcoin micropayment channels, based on Mike Hearn's Bitcoin J, funny enough. And for those who don't know what micropayment channels are, think of it like an escrow account where you deposit money into an account, deposit Bitcoin into an account, and for every piece of media that you want to consume, you debit that account. So you can watch 100 videos, you can view 1,000 articles, and the only thing that actually hits the Bitcoin blockchain is the setup and then the exit. So it's a great way for scalability to happen. Let's not even talk about the block size and scalability issues, but the idea that you can have thousands of transactions but only hit the blockchain twice for those transactions. So he's one of the first people to actually make that work. So a little bit to understand what we're doing. Hopefully, if I tell a little bit about how I got here, that will help us kind of understand my motivation about what we're doing and ultimately point towards the goal of where we'd ultimately like to go. So, like most people, the first time I heard about Bitcoin, I thought it was completely ridiculous. I heard about it in the context of Mt. Gox. For those who don't know, Mt. Gox is a fabulously flamed out Bitcoin exchange. But before that, it was a trading site for Magic the Online Gathering cards. So I heard about it in the context of Magic the Online Gathering, and I was like, well, this is money for these crazy games. I don't play these games. This is just stupid. I don't need to listen to it. That was like probably 2011 somewhere. So I'm originally from San Jose, California, heart of Silicon Valley. So I've got a lot of geek friends, and it's one of those things where you hear about once, you think it's ridiculous, you hear about again 6 months later, you hear about again 6 months after that. And after a couple of years, I was like, okay, next time I get a break, I'm actually going to make an effort to try to understand what the technology is all about. And like probably everyone in this room who works in this technology now, there's that light bulb moment where you're like, okay, so I was like, okay, once you have that moment, it's like you're committed, right? So it's just a question of what do I do with this? And since I can't code, I'm not a programmer, what I can do is, make pretty pictures, tell stories. So I was like, okay, I'll take my camera, go to our local Bitcoin meetup, and try to make content that helps to explain this technology, because it's a big, giant thing, right? It's a lot to try to comprehend. But the idea was, if I can get people who are doing interesting things and actually solving real problems with this technology, the way I learn is by watching other people do things more than reading or listening or something like that. So I was like, if I can just start telling these stories, then maybe that can have a positive impact. And lucked out, first Los Angeles Bitcoin meetup that I went to, our guest speaker was Andreas Antonopoulos. So did a 3-camera production, put the video out on YouTube. It got like 50,000 views in like a couple of days. And I was like, okay, there's an appetite for this, a worldwide audience. But of course, when you throw things on YouTube, even at that scale, it sounds like a lot of people, but that doesn't actually make any money for you. It makes money for YouTube, but if you actually want to make something that's sustainable, it just doesn't work. The economics don't work. So The ultimate startup question is whose problem are you trying to solve? What problem are you trying to solve? Ultimately, I needed to find a solution for my problem, which is how do we make this content sustainable? So I continued to make videos, and we called it the protocol.tv. And as I've gotten into the startup world a little bit more, I've heard this told so many different times where there's a startup that you start, and then there's a startup that you start after you start your startup, right? So you start walking down this path, you run into a brick wall, and you ultimately realize that the solution to that problem is much bigger than what you originally set out to do. So that's what PopChest kind of came about as. It was like, okay, let's create a system where people can actually monetize their content, where viewers can get what they want without all the commercial BS, get exactly what they want, be able to directly compensate the person that they're getting it from, which ultimately will lead to the creation of better content. From a cosmic side of things, if we can get just a little bit flighty, it's important what we surround ourselves with, right? What we give our attention to. The two most important things that we have as individuals are our time and our attention. So what do we choose to spend our time with? What do we give our attention to? And for the most part, the society that we have right now doesn't really encourage you to make conscious choices about what you spend your time and attention on. Part of it is just a matter of circumstance, right? So if you're in the middle of something, most people will say, this is just the way things are. Well, it's not the way things are. It's the way things are made, and it's the way things we allow them to be. So if we can change the equation in terms of what we choose to surround ourselves with and what we choose to give our attention to, then that's how things actually change, right? She's like smiling. Right. All right. So that's the motivation behind it. So how does that work on a practical level? First, I think to help understand that, I know this is more of a Bitcoin audience, so I thought it might be helpful to actually understand the economics of every time you go on a screen and you see something, to help you understand the economics of it. So most of the things that you watch are probably surrounded by advertising, right? So the purpose of advertising originally was to fund the creation of content. If you go back to the 1940s and 50s, when television started to come about, advertisers just actually made the content themselves. So you would have, the Standard Oil Hour variety show or something like that, where it was just straight up the brand is gathering everyone's attention so they can, A, be entertained, but of course the motive underneath that was that you get exposed to Brillo scouring pads or whatever the dish soap of the day was. So the advertiser would put up the money, the content creators would make the content, the television network would stand in the middle, that's where all the audience would come to. Let's say the advertiser paid whatever 2x is, the content creator spent 1x, and the network would stand in the middle, and they would take 1x. So that's kind of how the ecosystem worked out. As it stands right now, that's all changing. So when you think about it, it's a business model that's been around since the 50s, and really you could probably say that business model was taken from radio before that, which is basically kind of the same thing, War of the Worlds brought to you by ExxonMobil or whatever the case may be. So that really goes like to the 20s. So it's like a 100-year-old business model. And all it's doing is just going online. So right now, that business, online video advertising, is worth about $20 billion. To put that in context, global television advertising is about $200 billion, right? So as regular TV dies out, all that money comes online, now you've got even more advertising. That's what's coming, right? So when was the last time anyone actually watched an over-the-air television channel? Like, that's it. I did it for the Super Bowl because it had a better picture, right? But I had the DVR underneath. Anyway, you get the idea of where this is going. And as this is happening, the fundamental funding mechanism has changed, because the platforms that are now taking this content on, they don't actually care about the content. The content is immaterial. What matters is the times that the commercial is viewed. So when you look at YouTube, for example, and you see something's been viewed 1,000 times, that doesn't mean the video's been viewed 1,000 times. What that means is the commercial has been viewed 1,000 times. And that's the mechanism that content creators get paid by. So let's say the base rate for a commercial is $4 CPM is the mechanism. How many times per 1,000 is the number that you get. So let's say you have $4 for every 1,000 views. Well, not everything that you view, every video that you watch has a commercial in front of it, right? So really about 50% of the time that you watch something on YouTube, you get, generally it's about 50%. So that 1,000, okay, now that's up to 2,000. And then there's people who have ad blockers, right? So that's about 25%. So now that 2,000 is now 2,500. So now that $4 that you earned, it takes you 2,500 people to get that $4, which when you divide it, somebody do the math for me. It's like not that much per 1,000, right? You need a lot of people to start watching things to make anything sustainable for what you're doing. And for someone who's made a career in network television, that means that you have to start appealing to the least common denominator, right? So if you want to get 1 million views to make your thing sustainable, you're going to have to set your hair on fire. If you're a woman, you're probably going to have to drape your blouse a little bit lower and play video games and do things like that. What you're not going to do is have in-depth discussions about the issues of our time, right? So that's the fun with math. You start to see not only the challenge that content creators have, but the result of that, right? It's like you can't really have the discourse and the quality that I think a lot of people would want, because the economics just don't support it, because the platforms that exist right now, they don't really care about the content. All they need is eyeballs to watch ads. And for every person that's making something, there's probably 15 people behind them that are making more things, and it doesn't really matter, because as long as they get somebody's eyeballs on that ads, on the advertising, they get paid, even if they don't compensate the actual people who make this stuff. And there are countless examples. So I've heard of people who are YouTube famous who are working at Starbucks, right? Working at Starbucks on their college campus, and they have to quit their job because they're so recognizable that people are coming into their work and, you know, asking for selfies and wanting to take pictures, and they're basically, you know, working on minimum wage, right? There was a story recently of a woman who was in a lot of BuzzFeed videos. So like 17, 18 million views on these BuzzFeed videos, right? Just a ridiculous amount. And she was at a BuzzFeed party, and people kept coming up and recognizing her. Turns out she wasn't a guest, she was a waitress. So you can imagine just the disproportionate value. BuzzFeed is worth, what, like $10 billion? Yet the people who are making the content that power BuzzFeed are working, you know, tip job laborers, right? So the idea behind what we're doing is, rather than have that value, and this is just one of the many things that Bitcoin enables, it allows you to have a person-to-person transfer, right? That's one of the things that people are excited about and how it applies to banks and financial networks. But what if you take that principle and apply it to other different industries? So if you apply it to the entertainment industry, what does that look like? It means that if you like something, you can just send a bit to the person that's giving you that entertainment. So ultimately, if you kind of fast forward this idea, you think of what a television network is, right? If you think of what CBS is, what does it do? It does two things. It funds content, and the mechanism that it uses to fund that content is the advertising. So it's a central point. It's a central point to display advertising on type of content. So what if you take the funding, the mechanism for funding out of it, right? What would you have if you had a network without the ability to fund? If you couldn't put commercials on something, what would the purpose of CBS be? Well, if you, as an audience, can actually empower the individual for the thing that you're watching, then in effect, you become the network. So if 500,000 people are watching something, and those 500,000 people are giving a quarter to the person who made something, why do you need somebody to aggregate advertising for you? Because all they're doing is aggregating the advertising, taking their cut, paying off all the other people who are involved in the advertising who take their cut, and then they give you whatever your percentage is after that. So what if you just took the entire middle chunk of that, all of the middlemen out of it? One, you would get a good portion of your life back. For every hour television show that I edit, it's about 20 minutes of commercials, right? So it's about 40 minutes ago. It's a third of your life. How much is that worth to you? Is it worth a quarter? I think most people would say, yeah, I would much rather have 20 minutes of my life back in exchange for a dime or 20 cents or 25 cents. So that's what our big picture is, to kind of remove all the middlemen, to say to individuals, if you have something valuable, you don't actually have to wait for permission for some other person to either say, hey, you should watch this, because we're the mechanism to actually fund you. Individuals who watch your thing can now be the mechanism that actually funds you. Anybody who has a screen can be the mechanism. And I see all the, television, or this is a television now, right? Same sort of thing. Anytime you have a screen with a Bitcoin wallet, you have the same power by what you're giving in terms of your attention and your money as a network. So how does that look practically for us as PopChest? So right now we've got about 200 publishers on our platform. Most of it has been niche content right now. If you have a chance, suchwow.tv, they do awesome cat videos and hamsters, video games. Bitcoin, the End of Money as We Know It, which is a feature documentary, highly recommended if you want to understand the nature of money. And recently, I just found out about this last week, Naked Bitcoins, which is exactly what it sounds like. But if you understand the evolution, particularly of online video, the adult industry is always out front of everything else. It's the reason that most people at the very beginning had VCRs in their home. It's the reason at the very beginning why a lot of people had home video cameras. It's how a lot of the technology behind credit card processing online was created. The compression, decompression libraries that actually transport video efficiently from one end to the other is all because of porn, basically. So the idea that the industry is looking at what we're doing and at least starting to take hold, that's actually, as they say in Bitcoin, this is a good thing. So the specifics of what we've just recently done. This character called Nerd Rage. So he does these crazy chemistry experiments, sets things on fire, blows things up. The video that he did with us was dissolving gold in cyanide. And apparently, that's how a lot of gold mining is done. I didn't know this. So he's got 600,000 subscribers, right? So as you can imagine, it's a very niche audience, but the people that are into him are super into him. Now, and when I say bit curious, that means they're not Bitcoin people, but it's science, it's tech. It's close enough that when you start to explain Bitcoin, you're not starting from scratch. People kind of get it. So just to give you a sense of the numbers, 600,000 YouTube subscribers. I've worked on shows in what's called deep cable, not like your USA Network, but like the second tier where it's like Travel Channel or Food Network or something like that, where if we got 6, 7, 800,000 viewers per week, you get a second season, which is probably budgeted around $2.5 million or something like that. This guy can barely pay for the equipment that he uses to conduct the experiments, yet he's pulling the same numbers as something on television. That just gives you a sense of the disproportionate value about where things are actually going. Yes. So if I work on a television show that gets 800,000 people per week, that's going to be good enough to get ordered for another season. And generally, something like that might be budgeted on an annual level or a season level for $2.5 million, right? But this guy who pulls the same kind of numbers by the, just the numbers of video that he makes and the number of people that watch his content, he's basically getting paid less than $1 for every 1,000 views that he gets. So from a demographic standpoint, it's the same. It's the same 18 to 34-year-old male audience, right? If you put that on MTV, it's X millions of dollars. If you put that online, it's worth pennies, right? When you think about it, it just doesn't make any sense at all. And it's not that it's worth pennies. It's just that he's getting pennies. YouTube is getting $7 billion a year on annual revenue, right? So they're the ones collecting the advertising in between. They're just not passing it on to the content creators. So we want to bypass them. That's what Bitcoin does. It bypasses all the gatekeepers and the middlemen. So just to give you a very practical look at what our system looks like, it's super, super simple. Sign up, confirm your email. Once you connect your Coinbase Bitcoin wallet, this is our upload page. Got a laser. So the two big things are the preview video and then the price thing over here. Oh, there you go. So the preview video is like a movie trailer, so you can watch a preview of what you're going to see, so you can get a good sense of what it is that you're actually paying for. And we allow everyone to name their own price, as little as 10 cents per view. So that's a function of the network as it exists right now. Some wallets consider things less than 10 cents to be dust. So from a user experience, we basically just cut it off so that way there's less confusion, because otherwise you have people going like, how come I can't send this? And then once you put your video up, we automatically create a page for you, but we also, if I were to scroll down here, you'd see a little embed button. So we automatically create a page, but we give you the option to take a little code, put it onto your website, so you have more control over the experience. So if you have a WordPress website, it works on Tumblr, you can just throw it in there. So it doesn't really matter to us where you watch it, because the embedded player and the transaction is all included in that little code. So as many different platforms as we can get it on, the better. And it actually physically works on Twitter, so we could put this in your Twitter feed, except that would be a gross violation of their terms of service, and they'd probably shut us down. So, I know. So with Nerd Rage, I showed you before we had about 200 people using the platform, and we were able to gather a lot of information as we went along about what's working, what's not working, what people like, what people don't like, what's important, what we thought was going to be important, and what actually wasn't important at all. And with Nerd Rage, what we tried to do is distill it down into something we could replicate. into a playbook. The idea being, of course, if we can get this to work with someone at this level, add another 10 different kinds of content, hopefully the process itself can be distilled down to a methodology. So 3 things: educate, accommodate, and saturate. As I grab a little water. So, Bitcoin. Number 1, educate. I'm sure that's the entire industry's problem, right? It's a communal problem. We all have to tackle it in our own different way. And this is what we did. There's a whole industry that's cropping up called influencer marketing. And basically, a lot of the entertainment industry is coming to the same conclusion that we are, which is ads don't work. So what they're doing is effectively making the content the ad, right? So if you listen to a podcast, generally you'll talk, and somewhere in the middle, the guy, the woman, the group of hosts will start talking about a product, right? So there's no programmatic skipping that. You can either get up and fast forward it, but most likely you'll just let it go because you don't want to be bothered with it. So there's this moment where the content itself becomes the advertising. And the good thing about that is that the influencer themselves, they're the person who the audience listens to, right? So if I went to his audience and said, hey guys, I want to talk to you about Bitcoin, the channel gets turned off, people move on. But if we talk to him, educate him about Bitcoin, and then he takes that message in a way that he understands with his audience, they're going to be a lot more receptive to what the message is. So that's what we did with him. So a month before we released his video, he had an introduction to one of his other videos that said, hey, we're going to be doing this thing with Pop Chest in 4 weeks. It's about Bitcoin. We're going to do micropayments. Here's how you learn about Bitcoin. A week later, hey, we're going to be doing this thing with Pop Chest. If you want to sign up for a Bitcoin wallet, give us your email address. We'll send you instructions. And we actually had about 300 people sign up for Bitcoin wallets for the first time. So week after that, so on and so forth. And then, of course, that's how we were able to build awareness with the audience. So we actually used YouTube as a mechanism to build an audience for what we were doing. And if you kind of understand the dynamics of YouTube, that's not uncommon, which is, there's actually a quote from the head of YouTube's business operations that basically says, we're a good platform for aggregation, but if your success reaches a certain level, it's in your interest to diversify, right? They don't actually want you to be completely dependent on them because they know exactly where that leads to. But think of it like how musicians are doing more, right? It's like, for the most part, Spotify is a loss, but then they build awareness, and then they make their money on touring, on gear, so on and so forth. So it's a similar model with a lot of people making videos. So YouTube's a great aggregation audience, and then they move on to a different platform to actually do the monetization. And the other part is we actually talked with the audience. So we got into the comment section, answered questions. Anything that came up, we tried to provide an answer to, and made sure that people not only knew this was coming up, but also had the tools to, if they wanted to, hey, this is where you actually buy Bitcoin. This is how you can use your wallets, and so on and so forth. So it's basically about engaging the audience so they can be as prepared as possible when the moment actually came. And this was a trickier one. We tried to accommodate, we made sure to accommodate the existing audience. So the messaging, for example, for the YouTube crowd was, we're going to do this, but ultimately in a couple of weeks, we tried to be non-specific, but in a couple of weeks, we're going to put this free on YouTube. So this doesn't change for you, right? It's kind of like the healthcare discussion. If you have your healthcare, you can keep your healthcare, right? So to the people who are in his audience who like him, it's like, if you don't want to do anything, you don't have to do anything. You're going to get the same content just a little bit later. And the other part was for his Patreon subscribers, people who back him to an even higher degree. We made sure that when we released on our platform, we released a private version of that on Patreon, so they felt like they didn't have to do anything extra as well. Because ultimately, when you think about it, I don't need to go get everyone to get Bitcoin for this to work. What I need is his audience members who like this to have Bitcoin to make it work. So if we start there and work our way out, great. But the important part, like in any political campaign, we just have to make sure that our base is solid. And he's already done the hard work of bringing all these people together. It's just on us to actually give them the tools that they can use to enjoy his content. So then saturate. So once everything was ready, like I said, on the day of, he made a little trailer specifically for this video, put it on YouTube that was a preview of what the content was going to be with specific instructions to go to popchest.com to watch the video. We went throughout all social media. Like I said, we signed up about 300 people, so we sent them an email blast to remind them that this was happening. And of course, as I hope all of you saw, on the day after we released it, we put the link up on Reddit, and last Friday, for the most part, we spent the full day on top of the Bitcoin subreddit. And I can't underscore the importance of that enough. And it's not specifically for us, but the fact that we get community support, especially at these kind of early stage use cases, it's so important. It's I visualize it like someone trying to teach a kid how to ride a bike. So it's like for that first little bit, you kind of have to hold on to them and give them a little push, and then at some point you push them forward and they can make it on their own. So whether it's using something like Lawnmower or Fold or things like that. I don't even like Starbucks. I use Fold all the time. It's important that we as a community kind of, if we have this idea of like, oh, this is going to work like this, we actually have to make an effort to help these kind of projects. And I was not disappointed with the amount of support that we got, as well as, and this is a little bit more selfish, just the user feedback, just the user experience. Every time someone had a problem, every time someone liked something, we were able to catalog it in the comments and get that feedback and ultimately put that back into the product as it evolves. Actually, that's my side note. That's my #1 use case for a change tip. When somebody's like, oh, this didn't work, this sucks, send them like 25 cents. They're like, oh, yeah, I guess I hit the wrong button. Never mind. But then you have a customer for life, basically, right? It's like it doesn't really cost you that much. So it's a great tool. So what does this all mean? Why are we doing this? What's the point? What are the numbers? So the control part of this experiment was the day that he released his video with us. He also released another video on his YouTube channel, his regular process. So 2 equal videos, if you will. One through his standard YouTube channel, one through us. With less than 2% of his regular audience, we were able to triple his revenue. Now let that settle in for a little bit. So of course, if I throw an advertisement on YouTube, advertising is dumb, right? And by dumb, I mean it's dumb, but it's indiscriminate, right? It treats absolutely everyone the same. So collectively, all of you, if you're 1,000 people, you're worth $4. That means you're worth the same as him and as him. You might have come to the video because it was just auto-played next, right? So no effort. You could probably care less if you actually see it. You might have seen it in something else in like the little sidebar and actually made an effort to click. You might have been waiting for this, right? It's like, oh, I love the last one. I can't wait for the next one. So why should all of you be valued the same? If I could say to you, okay, I'm going to give you this thing that you really, really want before these other people get it, and it's going to cost you $0.25, all I need is 2 out of 100. And that will triple the amount of revenue because you're paying $0.25, whereas you two with your advertisement are paying 0.004 cents effectively for your attention, right? So every single micropayment that you can actually make, it's exponentially worth more than an ad-supported viewer. So the thesis, of course, is that, well, if we're just starting at that and assuming we grow, our goal is ultimately to hit that magic 10x, right? Everyone wants to say your startup has to be 10 times better than, well, now that we've done this, we've got a number to say if we just get 5% of your audience, 5 out of 100 people to actually pay for your content, whether it's because you offer it exclusively, whether it's if you offer it earlier than anyone else, that's not that much. In the context of, it's not going to work for everybody, of course, because there's just a lot of stuff that no matter how little you charge, no one's going to pay for it. But the idea is if you have a committed fan base, if you actually have people that enjoy what you do, that's not a big number to hit, right? It's just a matter of, can we educate your audience and can we make the whole thing easy enough to actually use? And that's what we're trying to do. Focus on that experience to make it as simple as possible for the end viewer, where they get value from it in terms of knowing that not only the altruistic part of it, which is knowing that they're rewarding the content creator that they love, but the actual practical part of it, which is if I want to watch a 12-minute video, I don't want to have to, if I really, really want to watch this thing, I don't want to have to be bombarded with all this crap, right? And even if I do, let's say, use an ad blocker, ultimately that's suicidal because you're actually killing off the content that you want the most. Now, for a lot of people, they don't really care. But that's all right because I don't need a lot of people. I need 5 out of 100 to 10x your revenue. You can find 5 out of 100. And if you can't, you probably don't have something that people are that excited about, which is fine as well. You can be YouTube famous, and that'll be good enough for you. So where we're at right now is to be able to take what we learned from this point. There's still a little bit that we're doing now in terms of just getting the audience feedback from the last week. We're really trying to let this run for about 2 weeks before we throw it on YouTube so we can gather a decent amount of information from audience members, as well as understanding the tail dynamics. So if you think of it like a graph, it's like people watch and then it's like, and then they're on to the next thing, right? So with this, no one's done it before. So what is that 10 days out? What is 7 days out? What does 15 days out look like in terms of the viewership from something? And then the other part is to repeat it. So not only repeat it with Nerd Rage, but to take the playbook and start to repeat it with different kinds of content across different kinds of the entire spectrum of stuff. So on that note, mysterious blank slide. I can't get into it specifically yet, but because we actually have a use case now and actually have numbers to back this up, the talks with content providers in Los Angeles who, it's funny, I speak to, let's say, Bitcoin investors, and it's blockchain, banks, yada, yada, yada. I speak to media people, and I go, micropayments for video. They just stop. You can actually pay for video? Yeah, that's what we're doing. So I think there's a greater sense of urgency in the media space because they're on a sinking ship, right? They've got, and they know it, right? It's like they can feel it coming. They're experiencing it every single day. And you see it represented, and I don't know how much you guys follow the stock prices of major media companies, but it's just been a shitstorm because they know that the model that they've depended on for 100 years, it's just not going to work for 100 more. It's probably not going to work for another 10 more, 5 more. That is scary as hell for companies that are worth 10, 20, 30, 40, $50 billion. Netflix is like Netflix came about, and it's like, okay, we're going to take this part, and we're worth $30 billion now. So what is NBC worth? I don't know. That's a very big unknown. But what we do know is that the status quo, it's just not going to work anymore. So that's what we're doing. Micropayments for video, it's been an idea. It would be nice if it works. We actually did it, and we made it work. So I'd be more than happy to take anyone's questions. Audience
All
participation.
right, we're going to take some questions. Here you go.
Thank you. Great presentation, Valerian. Yeah. Question I have is micropayments for video. So, of course, my question is going to be, what about audio or podcasts, or how do you see a market there with PopChest for that, and how do you see that working?
Sure. Definitely in our roadmap, the technology it's the same, right? We can apply that. It's actually when James and I first met, he was working on a tool to do micropayments for text, for articles. The technology is the same. The businesses are very, very different. Getting people to pay for information in terms of like reading, that's a cultural shift. Whereas with video, even more so than audio, it's like this is a process we're used to, right? We go to iTunes, we watch a trailer. It's like you already kind of get that. So we're starting with what is actually a higher margin thing as well. So it's a higher margin that doesn't require a change of behavior outside of Bitcoin, as opposed to the other things. So we're picking our niche, trying to nail the hell out of it, and then move on beyond that.
Here you go. Another question right here in front.
Great presentation. Andrew Burkhausen, thanks for having us and doing the great presentation. I have a question about how you're going to educate the consumers. In the past, as you said, the past 100 years, the consumers have felt, oh, I'm valuable. I'm the piece of real estate. The media companies or the platforms are presenting these ads to me because I'm the target. How are you going to change their viewpoint to say, oh, okay, now they're going to ones that have to pay the quarter, and certainly there in your example, there's going to be the person that's lining up, and oh my God, I can't wait to see the next video.
Sure. You are fast forwarding into our business plan. Okay, so the way that I described to him how he wants something from me, so that's one direction. What you're describing is our next step, which is the other direction. So I don't know how many people are familiar with the Brave browser. So there's a new web browser that was invented by the guy who created JavaScript and was one of like the earlier Netscape guys with Mark Andreessen. And one of the things that they have said for years was like the original sin that we did when we created the web is that we never really had a monetization tool built in. So you're going to start seeing Bitcoin wallets inside web browsers, right? So that's going to allow a two-way conversation. So if you want to pay me for content, that's great. Well, what if you don't want to pay for that content but still want it? If I can identify you, then I can say, if you want this and I know X, Y, and Z about you, you probably like Marvel movies. Okay, I'm Marvel. Now, I'm going to pay you to watch this content. And if you have a browser or a wallet in your browser, now I can send you a fraction of a penny, right? So now the next time you do get to something that you want to pay for, now you've kind of like started to earn that currency. So in terms of educating audiences, sure, at this stage that's what we're going to have to do. But when you start talking about the next steps, and you can put it into plain language as in, I'm going to pay you for your time, that's not about Bitcoin, that's not about technology, that's, okay, I get that. Right, you get that without understanding any of the technology. And ultimately, that's what we're going to have to do, is explain these things in ways that aren't technical at all. And that's one of the things that Nerd Rage was able to do. And one of the things that we're actually really good at in Hollywood, right, which is passion, right? It's not about you getting this currency to do X, Y, and Z. It's you getting this thing that you really, really want. And the only way that you can do it is by doing this. If you want that girl, buy this car, right? that's the that's the conversation. So it's being able to talk in that language and make it not about the technical, but about the passion of desire. If you want something, you'll do this. If we can make it easy enough and seamless enough. And there's something, ultimately, what are people motivated by? There's something in it for you. Cool.
Another question?
I don't know if you covered it, but I wanted to hear a little bit more about your relationship with the talent, whether you're actively recruiting content creators or, I think I missed it.
Sure,
I just wanted
sure.
you to go in more detail about that.
Yeah, that's the biggest challenge that we have right now in terms of just getting people who want to use it, right? So initially what we've been doing, I don't know if I said how I found Nerd Rage, but somebody posted, a year ago on the Bitcoin subreddit, like, hey, this guy put a Bitcoin tip address in his YouTube channel, and we just pursued him. It's low-level harassment for a fair amount of time until people get familiar with it. But as we get more of those use cases, that first person is always the hardest, right? Now we're able to take this and go to influencer networks and multi-channel networks. These are companies in Los Angeles that basically aggregate talent, right? So now we can go to them, which is part of our mysterious blank slide, and they've got 5,000 people on their roster. And then they can look at this and go, okay, here are 10 people that I think might work for this. Let's do a test with those 10. And if those 10 work, then maybe we can try the next 50. So the hard part is getting the ball rolling, but now that we have data and actual facts to back up what we're doing, now it's hopefully going to be a little bit easier to get chunks of people at a time. And as with most things, it's group dynamics. If somebody standing next to you is doing the same thing that you're doing and they're making 10 times the money as you, you're not really going to care about the technology. You're going to care about what they're doing, and you're going to get on it as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Can you interject it at during the last 5 minutes, so it's like, psych, you want to hear the conclusion? In other words,
Psych.
can you do it? Can you make it a pay-as-you-go for, say, a choose-your-own-adventure show?
I imagine someone could apply that. Yeah, it's one interesting application of it. Yeah.
Your results are amazing. That revenue chart of, what was it, 2 times the revenue? What was it? Yeah, that was insane. How did that compare with Patreon?
Patreon is a lot more money, just because people are giving
Directly,
big chunks out.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so it's Patreon is more similar to Pop Chess in terms of.
I would say this. I would say there's 3 categories. So there's just in media in general. There's subscriptions, there's ad-supported, and we're trying to be in the middle in pay-per-view. So if you would say subscriptions, you'd have Netflix over here. If you'd have ad-supported, you'd have YouTube over here. We would be kind of the Amazon Instant Video, iTunes in the middle. Technically, the term is transactional video on demand, TVOD, if you ever see that.
Thank you.
So you may have talked a little bit about this, answering about how you talk to content creators and how you're trying to grow from that. But how are you differentiating yourself from competitors like WatchMyBit.com?
We're not. So right now, I think the way that we look at the space is we don't look at competitors in our space. We know that they're there, and we know that what a lot of people in the space are doing. But we see our competitors as YouTube, right? So we see our competitors as these giants that have a vast majority of the market share. So there's no point in us fighting over that 0.00001% of market share that we have between us. So as long as we just keep doing what we're doing, no one else really matters, because we feel that if we're performing at a high level, ultimately, who knows how many players there might be, but we're going to be successful if we execute and stay focused on our plan. Specifically, if you want a couple of differentiation points, so it doesn't feel like I'm completely dodging the answer, One of the things that I love about our platform is that it's real-time payments. So if you watch something on PopChest, the person who's getting paid on the other end is getting their phone vibrating with a notification that they're getting paid in real time. So we do that for two reasons. One, because it's really, really cool. But two is that it puts us at a much, much lower risk level in terms of if we don't hold any money for anyone, we can't, there's no risk of us, not no risk, but there's a minimal risk of any kind of ramifications if we're hacked or spoofed or something like that. We don't have anything to steal, so there's not much point in that. And then the other part, of course, is the regulatory side of that, which is if you look like a bank and talk like a bank, you hold people's money, you're going to be subject to those rules and regulations. And since we don't do that, if we do get to the size that I hope we will, that's going to be a minimal point for us to have in terms of risk. And if we raise money, we want to spend it on the actual platform rather than licenses and lawyers, right?
So got a couple other questions here.
Sure.
If you've already answered this question, please feel free to throw the microphone directly at my head. But from what I can tell, don't you have to kind of get large on a platform outside of this prior to be able to really be able to adopt and use this? So essentially, the YouTube personality you're talking about, I mean, he was getting kind of screwed over on YouTube as far as the amount of money he was getting, but you have to get an audience that actually cares about you to the point that they're willing to go to another website, which as a content creator, Jesus, that's hard without forcing them to do it. I mean, it can be really difficult.
Sure.
So what are the ways by which you're trying to get people who are just starting out to start using this program to then get other people to kind of get integrated within it?
Right. So people are using it in multiple ways. So the Nerd Rage example is the one I gave. Is your first description, which is there's a built-in audience there. How do we maximize that audience for our platform? That's one thing. Let's put that aside for a second and go the opposite direction. So suchwow.tv was one of the examples that I used. She's growing her paying people as she's growing her YouTube subscribers. So in her YouTube videos, she'll say, if you want more content like this, go to my site, check it out, and that has all of her Bitcoin micropayment videos. So ultimately, it's about owning your audience, right? We want to be able to give content creators a tool to own their audience. When you think about it, something like YouTube, even if you have however many people, they don't share a lot of the information with you, right? You can't actually get the email address of your subscribers, which is kind of ridiculous when you think. But ultimately what that means is the audience isn't really yours. It belongs to the platform. So what a lot of people do is to, like I said, build their audience on that platform and then take them off some other place, whether it's their website, whether it's through sales of gear. So the mechanism for getting people off of YouTube isn't as difficult as that one might think, because a lot of people are already used to it, right? I worked on a show called Epic Meal Empire, which is the Epic Mealtime guys, and they sell spatulas, they sell oven mitts, they sell T-shirts, they bacon strips and bacon strips and bacon strips. None of that's on YouTube, but that's where their money comes from, right? So we're trying to fit into the model that people already have and just be another tool for them. Just so I can go back specifically, I want to make sure that I'm answering your question about people who don't already have an audience built in. I think right now she's probably got 100 subscribers, 120 maybe, something like that, in terms of that's how tiny she is. But one of her videos may get 500 views, which is nothing. But if one of those people pays 25 cents, that's the beginning of something. And then the next time, 2 people pay that. And then the next time, 3 people pay that. And then she might have one cat video that goes viral. And at the end of it, she says, hey, I've got this Bitcoin thing, check it out. If a sliver of that audience comes on, then you start to see the kind of snowball effect. So we try to make it organic as possible so that everyone sort of grows together. And that seems to be working for her so far.
Another question is, are you guys actively seeking venture capital, or are you good for the time being, or what are your plans in that realm?
We are at the angel stage. So the thing for us, particularly as everyone went into holiday mode, that was like our great build time. So we were like little worker elves. And ultimately, every person that I speak to, great idea, let's see the numbers. So now that we actually have numbers, if we can marry that with a pipeline of content from quality companies in Hollywood, then I think that's the killer combination.
Awesome. Other questions? Anybody else have any other questions here? So okay, over here.
So I guess I was curious about how users you pay 25 cents for a video. I watch it once and like maybe I want to watch it again, or like show my friend and pull it up on my phone. Like so you have to pay 25 cents again. How does that kind of thing work?
Sure. Once you pay for it, you have the option to download it as well. It starts streaming immediately. You can can download it as well. One of the things that we're working on trying to do, so that's the short, simple answer. One of the things that we're trying to do, because one of the things that people are really responding to is just not having to have an account, not having to have to do any setup as a viewer. It's like you literally point your phone at, no, why I just don't show you this thing. The minimal sort of input that it takes, people really like that. But we also want to give people accessibility without having to make an account. So one of the things I like about Airbits is Bit ID, right? So you can log into a lot of different things without actually having to have a big, complicated setup account. Just so I can actually show this to you. Oh, I'm not on the interwebs. Oh, Airbits, can you help me with your Wi-Fi at some point? But we want to try to make some kind of mechanism that basically you can take your Bitcoin wallet and have that be an account that will effectively allow you to have all the functions of the account without having to deal with any of the other BS stuff to go along with it. I can actually show you what we're doing. This is great.
Yeah, it was my next question. Let's see a demo. So
let's say somebody's got a Bitcoin wallet. And then the other thing, just very quickly, as I'm thinking about this, if you allow cookies to be set, we do set a cookie. We're finding that half the people have everything blocked on their thing, so that's only about half affected. Hacker. Make sure I don't have anything incriminating up here. Any other questions while we're
I guess what about live broadcasting? Any plans for that?
Yeah, we've looked at that. It's not in our immediate plans. It's a slightly different implementation. I think as we get bigger, ultimately we'd like to be able to do everything. But we're just starting with this one thing and trying to nail the hell out of that before we move on to other stuff. There is a live streaming Bitcoin platform. There's a couple. Streamium also is one. And for adult entertainment, there's one that's called, I don't know how you say it. It's like EXO something TV, Zoika. It's actually on your hand. I can see that.
You just need a hula skirt.
Oh, my Z is broken. Oh, right. Okay, so I actually have. This is so funny. No, I have. This is why I have. And actually, that's. Okay, so there's a Z. So actually, that's the command button. So Command V is paste like that. That's so funny. That's actually why I have the Zap chain bookmarked there, so I can just copy that Z and. It's like, of all the letters to break on your keyboard, it's like I never use it. This V, option V. Fifth time's the charm. Oh, yes. Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions while he's setting that up? Okay, right over here.
Yes. All right, so this is the actual, I'm going to put this on mute so it doesn't blow us out. So this is the actual video that we did. So as you can see, it's pretty simple if you want to watch the preview. He's talking here, blah, 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 blah. If you want, you can wait to watch this or skip the preview, and then you get this little thing. Anyone with a Bitcoin wallet? Who's going to do it? Yes. Audience participation. Did you say green address won't load? We actually had somebody send money directly from an exchange. That was one of our customer support tickets. It's like, I sent the money and it's not showing up. I'm like, what wallet did you use? Oh, I think it was oh, there you go. What's it, Poloniex? Something like that? So, I love Apple Pay because it's got people used to doing that, right? You hold up your phone to pay for something. That's all he did, was just hold up his phone, and now the contents go. Anyway, so this is how you mine with gold and cyanide. Go figure. Any other questions? Oh, one more. It's so exciting. Just so you can see, so there's the download video as well.
So I was just wondering about like the regular kind of movies you see on like pay-per-view. Is there any reason that you couldn't have that?
No, it's just a matter of content. It's just a matter of the actual licensing and trying to get that together as well. So Bitcoin, the End of Money, as I said, this is an hour-long documentary. So he did, we did about 70% of what his Vimeo on demand was. Obviously, the kind of content is perfect for that, but we were able to charge less because with Vimeo, of course, you have to go through the credit card processing. So when you have a $3 or $4 film and it's like 2.9% plus 30 cents, plus 50 cents, that ends up being basically another 10% or more off of your profit. So we could actually charge less and get the content creator more money because we don't have to deal with all the credit card processing fees. And of course, our system was robust enough to deal with an hour-long feature-length film.
Awesome. Okay, another question over here.
Are you charging for publishing or hosting?
Right now, as we're in beta, we're charging 0%.
But eventually you're going to probably need to.
Ultimately, we will. And I think what we're going to be able to do is our goal is to basically flip things upside down. So if a content creator right now is basically getting like between 20 and 30 cents on the dollar, if everything holds up in terms of the numbers, we think we can flip that and still be a profitable business and get more money to the people who actually make stuff.
Another question.
So in terms of like getting money to the people who create the content, right? So
Yeah.
I guess the network comes into play in terms of making initial investment in sort of creating TV shows and whatever money needs to make like not just a YouTube video, but a quality whatever production, right?
Right.
So what happens then, I guess, if you take more money away from the networks and they're non-existent, where now the content creators who are receiving all the money aren't really reinvesting it into new avenues, I guess. And I guess just like, what's your opinion on that? How that might play out in the future, I guess.
Yeah. Obviously, we won't know until it happens. But I think in principle, there's an old saying which is, why do you make a film? You make a film so you can make another film, right? So if that's what you do, that's probably what you're going to continue doing. I think the bigger picture question is, this technology is going to force companies to re-examine what it is that they do, right? Which is, if you're standing in the middle of all of these, in the middle of this entire transaction point, and if the technology enables that transaction to go around you, it's going to force you to re-examine what it is that you do as a company, right? Because ultimately, I think a lot of people feel the same way, which is, I don't want to get a cable subscription, to get a content subscription, to get a premium subscription, to get Game of Thrones. Once the people who make Game of Thrones realize that they can just send to me directly, why do I really need the HBO app? It's kind of pointless, really. If I can actually pay the content creators, it's pretty pointless. But HBO's worth probably like $15 billion, so they're going to have to figure something out. Everyone's going to have to figure something out.
So quick comment here. I'll come look at your screen here, and
Sure.
You've probably already thought of this, but if you haven't, just this is valuable ad space right here for a wallet provider like Airbits, and you could work out some kind of deal where they pay to have a spot or a strategic partnership or something. So unlock with Bitcoin, pay here. Don't have a Bitcoin wallet, click here. Right? So you already thought of that.
Sure. You can. I feel like you're like reading into my brain. So I'm actually meeting with our design team over the weekend, and that's one of the big enhancements to the next version of our player. Obviously, this is the touch point for everyone. So we're trying to put as much functionality as possible without making the experience cumbersome. So to answer that question, I don't have Bitcoin. What do I do? To be able to have that button just right there in front of you, that's definitely something that we're looking towards. And just a quick side note on that, that is still the pain point of the industry, right? Which is, how do you acquire Bitcoin? I've seen a couple of things recently. I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on this, but it was like an exchange I think it's called Simplex, where they were trying to get real-time credit card payments for Bitcoin, basically doing like a crazy risk assessment and being backed by exchanges and pools and things like that. So ultimately, we're just going to try to make that as easy as possible until somebody figures that out a little bit more so we can use it. Yes.
Comment on, and we'll take it offline later. But another idea, need Bitcoin, click here, or you could also have an advertiser, a little link there saying, would you like this advertiser to pay for your show?
Right.
And they click on that, they see a commercial or have a link or whatever it is, and then it takes
so
them
that's
into
exactly what. I'm sorry. Tell me your name again. What Andrew was talking about in terms of us getting to making that transaction bi-directional. If I know that he has a Bitcoin wallet, then I can start to do stuff like that.
In this case, it would be the advertiser who pays for the show, so the user watching it doesn't have to do anything. He just says, I'm going to watch the ad, and that advertiser is going to let me in, and they're going to pay the content creator the fee for me. You know what I'm saying? Well, I don't see any reason why the advertiser couldn't have a budget in the system, and it just deducts from their wallet.
That's basically what advertising works as right now, right?
Yeah. So you give them an option.
Yeah.
All right. I had a couple more announcements tonight. I think MK had a few things that she wanted to say before we wrap up. But let's give a big round of applause to Valerian tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Airbits, for being awesome hosts.
All right, so here's a quick few things from Megan.
Alrighty, thanks everyone for coming out. I hope you all enjoyed it. Our next meetup is the last Thursday of March. It's March 31st, but we also have one in between that's on March 10th. We'll be hosting Appy Hour here, which is a group of startups in San Diego that are really active. They're not necessarily Bitcoin related, so this is a cool event to come by if you want to learn more about the greater Bitcoin startup scene. And then also our next event that's a Bitcoin meetup will feature Angela Keaton of antiwar.com. We'll both be doing a presentation on how Bitcoin can empower nonprofits and controversial organizations. So definitely check that out. And if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, there is a list still going around. I believe it's in the back there. And we'll also be doing a raffle at the next one. So I hope to see you all then. Thanks for coming by.
All right, thanks everybody for coming out tonight. Drive home safely. And if anybody is looking for Bitcoin tax help, come see me afterwards. I know a guy, and I'll put you in contact with him. Anybody who doesn't have a wallet yet, if there's still any of those people that are here and would like one, please come up front and we will help you get one.